I can't wait any longer.
Let's go.
I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide?
Damn, we need to make this thing even.
I can't believe it's you. Don't tell anyone. I'm not ready for this. Don't tell anyone. Thank you.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hello and welcome all you Breen Weavers. This is the only podcast dedicated to the filmmaker and visionary Neil Breen, and I'm your host, Neil Knipe. I just wanted to very quickly say, before we get going, thank you to everyone so far who has listened, downloaded, liked, subscribed, shared the last 3 episodes. It's really very much appreciated and it means an awful lot. Thank you very much. I've had a few really nice comments from some of you Breen Weavers and that was just great. So thank you again, everybody. Thank you. Victoria Viveiros is my guest on this episode, and you will know her by her former name, Victoria Verlaine, in 2013's Fateful Findings, where she played Amy, the stepmother to a teenage seductress and also a husband murderer, be it intentionally or not. Victoria talked to me about direction during tricky scenes, refusing to eat the catering, Breen's bottom, and a piece of exclusive trivia she's never revealed before. Now, I think you'll find this interview a fascinating contrast to our previous ones. Victoria's experience on the movie doesn't share the same fondness as our last guests, and it's a piece of work she isn't wholly proud of. But just like Maraud and Nicole from episodes 1 and 2, she makes her admiration for Neil's dedication, commitment and achievements really clear, as well as her solid belief in what a nice guy he is. Now, just a quick note. You may realise that some of the questions that I ask seem silly to ask after our previous episode with Rob Hill, but that's because this interview, and in fact quite a few of our interviews coming up, were recorded before I spoke to Rob. So that's maybe why I ask questions and you think, well, hang on, we already know the answer to this through Rob. Before you appeared in Fateful Findings, where were you?
That was actually my first real acting gig. What else did I know, but honestly, Neil is a really nice person. But yeah, that was my first acting gig and I got it through my agent. Before that, I've actually been a dancer my whole life. And then I decided I wanted to take all these classes and I really loved acting. Loved it. So I stopped training in dancing, although I always danced professionally. And then I focused on just acting training.
So was this your first audition as well?
I don't remember if it was my first audition. I'm assuming no. I feel like I had already gone on other auditions. Yeah.
And what was the audition process like? I presume it was with Neil himself.
Yeah, he gave us sides. We were actually, I remember being in the backyard by his pool, just on like the pool chairs, and he gave sides and had me read them back, and then that was it, I think.
And did you get how soon was it before you got the official word?
Maybe a week.
He didn't just point the finger there and then and say you're cast.
No, I believe there is a rhyme to his reason or whatever he does. I don't really know exactly what it is, but because I know after, he was pretty specific about not ever using the same people in his films.
Did he make you aware of why that is? Why is this thing then that he doesn't like to bring back the same?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure, but I haven't really seen him use many of the same cast often.
Were you aware of him before? I mean, obviously this was his third film, wasn't it? But were you aware before you went for the audition?
No, I wasn't.
And it was I believe it was kind of Fateful Findings that kind of put him on the map, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really was. And it's really incredible what because I have to tell you, Neil is a really brilliant person. So I almost have to wonder if some of it is intentional, things like I remember watching Fateful Findings in the theater, and the computer or laptop is clearly when they're typing on it. So just little things like that. He is I believe he's an architect. That's his
Mm.
main job. So he is really intelligent. But at the same time, he does everything for his films. So obviously, when you do everything, things get missed. So I'm not sure really, because I feel like little things like that, like, are kind of big things. So, I don't know.
So are you kind of suggesting that maybe some of these goofs, that these could be done intentionally?
Yeah, I really don't know, because like I said, he is a really intelligent person. So you would think that he would have caught those things. I'm not sure.
Interesting, and yeah, really interesting. So, were you given a full script before you started?
I don't think I did. I must have just gotten my own sides and my own scenes.
And was the plot explained to you, or the message or the idea behind the film? Was there kind of a conversation about that?
Loosely, I believe. Yes.
Was that successful? Did you kind of feel, in the know?
No, no, but part of that even could have been me, because remember I worked at Coyote. So most of the times when I was on set with him, I would work at Coyote until 4 in the morning and have to be on set at 7 a.m. So oftentimes I had like an hour of sleep before. So, and no drugs, just a lot of coffee.
So did that cause you? Then kind of linking that to your character, especially seeing as your character is quite a dramatic character. With there's a meaty plot going on there. With you, does that lack of maybe completely understanding what's going on? Did that then affect your character? Did Neil talk to you about the character as well?
I do feel like I went in a bit blind, but I also feel like I don't entirely still understand, like, my character's correlation with the whole plot.
Yes.
I mean, really, she could have not been in there and
Yes.
it wouldn't have changed.
Is this a film about relationships, romantic and sexual relationships? Or is this a film about corruption?
I would say maybe both.
How did the plot and the stuff around relationships feed in to this, superhero who deals with corruption?
Gosh, I don't even know if I'm sure, really. You're right. I mean, I don't really know that it really. Yeah, I mean, he is very eccentric, so it could very well be that he had something in his mind. Um, the thing that I have found about, because I do a lot of choreography. I have a dance studio now where I am. But the thing that I've realized about anything visual performing arts, if you put a lot into it of like thought and connection or whatever it is, people somehow feel that, because there's pieces I've choreographed, and I haven't really put I've just kind of been like, and haven't put a ton in. But if I have a personal connection to a routine or a song that I picked, and I put so much effort into it because it's important to me, then people tend to really love those numbers, and they don't really understand why, right? Because people feel things. So that's the really interesting thing about his films. Like, he really has drawn such a huge crowd, and it might not be for all the right reasons. Probably not. But for some reason, people want to watch it. And I get that a lot of times, like, it's like a car accident. Like, you're like, what just happened? But at the same time, maybe he put a ton into it and it's really personal to him, and we just don't understand it. You know what I mean? Like, he leaves it aloof. I don't know. Because I'll tell you, I've done projects that I'm really like, I feel like looked good and I was really proud of. And this project has gotten the most attention. And obviously, I mean, even when I worked at Coyote, people come and be like, oh, I saw you in Fateful Findings. Even one of my dancers, I've moved away from Vegas, and one of my dancers' dads here is like, I couldn't wait to meet you because I saw you in Fateful Findings. I was like,
So how do you
but
take that? Is it a slight albatross, or is it, you know, are you proud of it, or how, you know, how do you react? How do you feel when you get recognised and noticed for that piece of work?
oh, I don't know how to answer that because I also don't want to be mean because I like Neil, right? Um, there's pieces that I've done that I'm really proud of. So obviously, but you know what? It was my first time acting. I didn't do like every acting job you do, that's why they say huge actors often don't watch their work because you learn so much in everything that you do. So then you watch yourself and you're like, what was I doing? You know, but in the moment, that was the best choice that you felt for your character, you know, and some of it you're just in the moment feeling through. So, yeah, what is my reaction? I'm always like, oh, geez, always.
And what
Yeah.
you were saying about he's an eccentric character. What do you mean by that? Are there any examples of these eccentricities?
The only way I can explain it is he has a lot of maybe inner dialogue with himself during conversations, because when you're talking to him, you could see him kind of smile and like he almost looks like he's talking to himself, but he like will only give you so much, if that makes sense. So I feel like a lot goes on up here, and then he'll just probably the same with, you know, he'll only give so much.
And
So
was that kind of when he was directing you and your character as well? I mean, were you getting quite focused direction on how to bring that performance out of you?
I feel like there was a little bit of frustration when I was filming with him, but on both ends. I mean, you gotta admire people that do this. I feel like he's just like, I'm gonna do this and I'll figure it out on the way. I'll make mistakes and I'll figure it out on the way. I feel like he didn't really know, like he was newer at directing people, right? And I was a newer actress. So I hadn't really worked with a lot of directors, and I feel like he was a newer director. So there was frustration because he was trying to get me to achieve certain things. And, you know, since I've worked with some directors out of Vegas that are very skilled in directing, and they have a way to ask you a question to drive you in a certain direction as an actor to achieve the scene that they want to see, right? And just see how, without forcing you or telling you like you need to act like this, they more ask you a question and let it come naturally to you as the actor, the character, right? So he didn't really have those skills, but I also didn't have the skills with acting there, if that makes sense. So I feel like there was frustration because I remember the scene when I shot my husband in the car and I was like yelling. He kept telling me that I was like smiling when I was saying it. And he kept getting really frustrated at me. And I didn't feel like I was smiling, so I didn't understand what he was saying. And so there was like a little bit of like, oh, on both of our parts, I feel like, because he was trying to achieve something, but I wasn't understanding. So it was kind of both. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I was thinking about that scene in particular, because obviously, you know, it's a tricky scene for anybody because you're being driven to murder. Were you given rehearsal time for that again, you know, to kind of be able to get yourself to that point? And
I don't think so, but I also didn't really know at that stage of my acting how to, you know, actors have a process that they go through before scenes to get themselves to scenes. I didn't understand that at that point. I was so new to acting then. So I didn't do, you know, I mean, since then, there's a variety of things that I've learned to do to get myself into character. But for about, I would say for about 10 years, I really trained in acting, and I learned how all the work to do before to get myself into character and what questions to ask. And it was always different. My process was always different, but I just didn't know then. And again, he didn't know how to get me there, right? So it was both. And maybe that is a little bit, I would have to see who he's hired since, because I haven't even seen what films he's done since. But I do know a lot of the actors in Vegas. Maybe not so much now, but I did because I trained with a ton of them. So I'm really curious who he hired after that, because it almost seems like he kind of focuses on newer actors, right?
Yes.
Which could be why he doesn't use them again. But that's where it's really hard, because again, I didn't, but maybe, so that's what I'm saying. If you're focused on newer actors, they're not going to know how to get themselves there. So you're going to achieve what we got. I met indie film directors that I kept working with over and over because we had a good working relationship, you know what I mean? So he was one of the few that I never worked with again. Like, it was one time, you know, and I had coffee with him a few times after, you know, and I like talked to him, like, happy birthday, that kind of thing. But he was one of the few that I never again. I don't know if you experience that where you are, but here people have become so unreliable. So even the acting community, right? I know actors that were really good too, and they would show up 30 minutes, an hour late. And whether you're paid or not, you still need to respect those people's time, right? Neil is a paying production. He does pay his actors. I mean, it's not SAG wages, but he still does pay his actors. So, you know, I don't understand that philosophy. So I don't know if you experience that there, but I would think constantly using new people where you're not even sure if they're going to show up or not would be really stressful.
Yeah. You have this relationship with your husband in this, and it's quite a complicated one, because when we kind of first meet you both, he seems to be the awkward one, the one who's putting up barriers, but then he's apologizing, but you're putting up the barriers. Then you're trying to kind of make amends and he's putting up the barriers. Again, was that confusing for you? And was there a reason why this balance kept changing? And
I don't think I even thought about it at the time, because I didn't know how to delve into character, you know, but you're absolutely right. It was literally just this push-pull relationship. I don't know. But the one thing that I do know, and I don't know if this is literally the one thing that I was told, is that I'm the stepmom of his daughter.
He says to you, your stepdaughter. That line's in the film, is it? Yes, I thought it was an unusual choice of phrase when he's kind of going, your stepdaughter. So it was your stepdaughter. Again, was there a reason for this?
I remember him saying, because, I mean, at the time I was 15 years younger, so I looked kind of young to have a daughter of that age. So I think that that's why. And I almost wonder if that line, maybe he put that in after he hired me.
You were kind of talking about things being intentional. And I think, you know, it could be said that there's elements of Fateful Findings that are quite on the nose. Do you think, again, is that intentional just as a kind of an easy way to get the message across?
Yeah, I think so.
I think obviously you're coming from that point of view as well, where we are confused. We're confused over elements of this film.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that he doesn't know either, and he just throws it all in there, and then everybody's like talking about, like, was it intentional? And maybe he's like, I just did it.
How smooth did filming go? What was the best day? What was the best day on set?
Maybe the dinner scene. Yeah, I feel like maybe the dinner scene, but that also wasn't I don't think that was a very dramatic scene. And it was also a scene, I don't think it moved the story forward at all, did it? It was just like a smooth day, you know? Because when you, like I said, when you get basically two people that are novices and don't know what they're doing, there's just like some frustration, because if you have somebody, even if I had been a more experienced actor at that point, and I could say, okay, like, I would have known how to even help him direct me, Do you know what I mean? But I didn't know how, and he didn't know how. So it was just, you know.
I mean, it's possible you've answered this already, but what was a tough day on set then? What was the toughest day on set?
I think it was probably that shooting scene. And even the scene where my husband and I were arguing on the couch and he like did I throw the drink? I don't even remember. No, he threw the drink at me. I don't remember.
And what was it that made that scene that was frustrating?
Just trying to achieve a scene that none of us knew how to achieve.
What?
Yeah.
Neil Breen often plays, a similar type of character. What do you think attracts him to these roles?
I don't know. The only thing I really know about him is that, and I don't know if you know this, but he's an architect.
Yeah.
So I think he did a lot of work even for MGM, some of the big casinos there, which honestly, those casinos are beautiful. So you have to be pretty brilliant to do that work. That's the only thing I really know about him.
And how were the rest of the cast on? Did you get the feeling that they felt similar to you?
I don't remember talking to a lot of them except for the guy that played my husband. And I do feel like he probably had some of the same. I don't really know what his acting resume is. I actually still don't know that. So I'm not really sure what his resume was, but I definitely know I could tell there were times when him and Neil would get kind of frustrated for the same reason, because Neil was trying to achieve something in a scene and he didn't really necessarily know how to get there either,
Got a natural talent, and my talent basically has been honed by training, dedication, passion, and the will never to give up.
The man, the myth, the legend.
There's no one else like me because there's only one Andrew Stone.
Thought lost for nearly 15 years, the complete saga of Starman and its frontman, Andrew Stone, is now available in its entirety on YouTube.
It's not about the X Factor, it's about the It Factor, and I've got it.
In a new and exclusive re-edited format, witness the reality star dubbed The Real David Brent.
Okay, I think I am one of the best men in bed, and everyone's going to think I'm an arrogant tosser, but I'm brilliant in bed.
You won't believe your eyes or ears of this 4-part series, recreated from footage from Sky Television's Pineapple Dance Studios.
Yes, I am brilliant in bed because I have no fear, no barriers, and I'm a giver.
Just search for the Andrew Stone tapes on YouTube now.
I mean it, turn it off. I'm getting off now. I'm really off.
So now it's just what I call these tiny little questions, minutiae questions, things that maybe the fans wonder about, or some silly little things, maybe some a little bit cheeky. There seems to be a fascination with catering. As we know, Neil does his own catering. We do know that at the start of his very first films, it was sandwich platters. Had they been upgraded by the time we got to the third film, or what was on offer?
No, they were still sandwiches. Yeah, they were sandwiches.
But good sandwiches.
No, I'm actually kind of a jerk about what I eat. Our food in America is absolutely terrible. And I've learned that from traveling overseas. I remember being in Australia for 2 weeks, and I felt so much better after eating their food. And even the times that I've come over, like to London or Paris, like anytime I've eaten, like here you get indigestion, you get heartburn, like you get rashes from the food. So I've actually been a jerk about what I eat for years. I pretty much eat all organic, and I know it doesn't always make it, but like what our FDA approves in our food compared to like you guys, So I did not eat his food. I brought my
own. Was that Neil's red Ferrari?
Yeah, I think it is actually. There was a guy who played, he's actually my ex-husband from Australia. He played the character where he's like, it was him, I saw it. That guy, like when he hit, when the accident happened, that was actually my ex-husband.
Do you really need to have 4 laptops as an author?
When they're not. Yeah, no, I'm certain you do not.
Who was the naked girl in the black room inside the store?
I knew you were going to ask that. That actually was me. I've seen people question that, and that was one of like the most risque things I've ever done. But nobody knew it was me. But I've seen like forums where people go back and forth, and of course, I'm not going to tell them, but I just did.
An exclusive. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, while we are on the cheeky questions as well, while we bring that up, there's a kind of a trope that reappears with his female cast, and that they don't wear bras. And it's always been a kind of a discussion about, is this something he requests from his female cast, or is there a discussion about it at all, or?
No, like I remember when he was asking me about that scene, I was really on the fence about it because that just I never, that was literally one of the most risque things I've ever done. And the only reason I agreed to it is because he said it would never show my face and nobody would ever know who it was. And honestly, everything was pretty, like when I was there, everything was pretty tasteful. So I don't think that he would. But that is very strange that none of them were. So maybe, I don't know.
And out of 10, how are we rating Neil's bottom?
I thought he was was he in the shower with the?
Yeah, well, you see his bottom. I mean, I'm not an expert on male bottoms, but I thought he looked like he had I was quite surprised. I thought he looked like he had quite a good bottom on him.
I don't know. I mean, he is really lean.
No comment. I'll take that as a no comment. Plead in the fifth. I'll take that as. But did you like the film?
No.
And why was that? Why didn't it work for you?
Even at that point, there were things that I knew that were, but I'll tell you. So I actually watched it for the first time. It was playing in a theater in LA. And so I drove to LA to go watch it. And like everybody in the theater was like, obviously all these things, right? So at the time, I was like a newer-ish actress, although I think I already knew so much more by the time that it was actually out. So imagine like you're excited, it's your first acting gig, and then like, ugh. But since I have like a much better sense of humor about it, and I think it's hilarious that like the projects I've worked on and the one that gets the most clout is this one.
Have you seen it with an audience, with Neil in attendance, like at the premiere, or?
No, I don't believe he ever had a premiere. No, but then I was literally like flabbergasted. I'm like, how did he get this in theaters?
I find it interesting that I think kind of what you're hinting at there is that there was probably laughter and there was maybe comments and audience participation and things like that. So I'm always intrigued as to how Neil reacts to that.
Yeah, but I think from when I've talked to him, I feel like he's very proud of his work. And that's why I'm trying to, I feel like, I mean, there's that saying, no publicity is bad publicity. So even like negative publicity is good publicity. So it could very well, I mean, I used to dance for this show at the Hard Rock Beecher's Madhouse. And Beecher is like a master. He knows tons of celebrities. He is a master at free marketing. So after dancing for him and watching the stuff that he did, like Beecher did things like climbed into, he had all of us be like patrons at the Rainforest Cafe. It's like a big popular restaurant. It was at MGM, and he was a bigger guy, and he had all of us like act like we were just there. And then he dropped down to just his Speedo and jumped into the fish tank with a sign that said Beecher's Madhouse. But he also was friends, or still is, with like Paris Hilton and Nikki Hilton, and he got them to walk by. So it was all over E! Entertainment, like literally free marketing all over the country for his show. So I watched, like when I danced and choreographed for his show. So I watched the way he worked. So that's why part of me feels like is this intentional? Because look at what he's done. Like everybody knows of all the things I've worked on, even like everybody like knows about these films. Do you know what I mean? So maybe he does it all intentionally. I don't know. Has he done any interviews with people?
No, again, he's really, really guarded. He will do Q&As and things like that at, again, cinema festivals, film festivals. But no, as to just doing something like this, coming on a podcast or talk, he's very, very, very guarded about that from what I'm aware.
Yeah, and I mean, I think of all the filmmakers out there. I know filmmakers who are honestly they produce far better films, indie films, and they are not as well known as him. So either way, he created something. People know who he is, so I'm not sure.
So where are you now then, post Breen? So you did pursue acting for a while.
I did, and to be honest, not to be morbid, but I was considering moving to LA at a certain point and just pursue acting. But my mama died when I was 37 or 38, and since my dad has passed too, so I got to the point where I just really wanted to have a family of my own, and so I really contemplated, and I just decided that I was gonna focus more on that. So. I moved, I live near Yosemite now with my husband. He's a helicopter pilot for CAL FIRE. So we have our son who is, he just turned 4. And then I opened, the only thing is, so it's a smaller area where I live. And it's pretty famous. The town I live in is called Columbia. It's pretty famous for gold panning. So the early settlers came here to mine for gold. Even in our backyard, there's these huge holes where they mined. So I couldn't imagine, like I went back and forth. Am I going to get a real job? I've never had, well, that's not true. I've had a real job, but most of my jobs have been in entertainment. So I contemplated going to school and, doing something that society considers normal, and I couldn't do it. So I opened a dance studio about 2 years ago.
Fantastic. And that's going well?
It is. Yeah. I didn't know anybody when I opened it. I was brand new to the area. So I have now about 120 students.
Do you look back on your experience on Fateful Findings fondly now?
I guess I just think it's hilarious is the only way I can explain it. I worked on this one film. It took us forever, and it changed names a million times. It was called Do Not Disturb, and then they changed the name to The Haunting at Amargosa Hotel. I worked on that film for years, and I was just so close to the cast and crew, and the experience was, we shot in the desert in 120-degree weather with no AC, and then we also shot in caves where it was 7 degrees outside. So that one I look back on, and also oddly, 3 of the characters in that film have passed away since. And we filmed at a haunted hotel. So the lady who played like the innkeeper, she passed away actually after she shot her role before the film was even released. And then my lead character, he passed away of COVID in 2020. And then one of the other main characters who was on Storage Wars, also his son is one of the lead actors in Storage Wars, Gunter. He passed away, like a year ago or a year and a half ago. I think he had lung cancer. Do you know who Gunter is?
Yes, he was actually in a Neil Breen film. He was in Neil Breen's second film.
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
He was literally one of the most incredible. He was hilarious. And, everybody had a hard time understanding him with his accent, but he was just a music genius and just a fun loving, just sweet, sweet man. He always made all of us laugh, and he was fantastic. And so was the lead character too. But yeah, so it's not like a project I look on and I felt super connected to everybody there. I felt like it's kind of something that I just kind of did, which is hilarious that it's gotten so much clout, and obviously not for the right reasons, but it has. But like I said, there was projects I worked on, and I really got connected to the director. We worked really hard. We felt like we overachieved, like we overcame like huge hurdles with even blocks in our acting, and so it's not really a project I look at like that. Like, it's just kind of something I feel like I did.
I really should have pushed for a definite rating on Neil's bottom there. If you have any observations, analysis, or detailed critiques on Neil Breen's posterior, please do let me know. Perhaps it'll be a subject to dedicate an entire episode to in the future. As always, I have to give a heartfelt thank you to our guest for talking to me. It was wonderful to get not just another take on the Breen experience, but a different one. So thank you very much, Victoria. You maybe picked up on it too, but I think Victoria was doing a really excellent job to remain as diplomatic as she could, to be open and honest but fair. Her comments were well considered, so she could get her thoughts and feelings across whilst still remaining as respectful as possible to those she shared that time with. If you want to check out Victoria's dance studio and classes, then you can go to balancemovementcentre.com or search for Balance Movement Centre on Facebook. Fading on the title card that reads The End, as we close this episode of My Scene with Breen. Or maybe that should be to be continued, as there's still several more interviews already recorded and ready to take us into the new year. So please subscribe, share, rate, all those things, and then you'll not only be notified when a new episode is released, but you'll be helping the exposure of this show greatly. Next episode, we'll have a very honoured guest, one of, if not the only, performer to appear in 2 Neil Breen movies. So don't miss that. And I'll make this the final podcast where I do just make this little plea. But if you're one of the many people I've contacted, if you've worked with Neil Breen, if you're listening right now, please get in contact, as I would love to speak with you. I can be reached at bitemythumbtv@hotmail.com. Oh, and before I sign off, I just want to make a quick request. Thank you to those listeners who have inquired about possible ways that they could contribute to this podcast financially through Ko-fi tips or PayPal donations or such. It's really kind. I really appreciate it. But I'm afraid, as a lot of you are over on the other side of the Atlantic, US dollars can be tricky to transfer. So, yes, please stop trying to send American books, because it's becoming quite a nuisance. You can keep your books to yourself. I repeat, no more damn books. No more books.
You've been listening to My Scene with Breen, a Neil Breen podcast and a Bite My Thumb production. Your host was Neil Knight. Bite My Thumb can be followed on Twitter or X at Bite My Thumb, on Twitch at twitch.tv/bitemythumb, on YouTube at bitemythumbtv, or on Letterboxd at bitemythumb. All music was written and created by Cotsplays. He can be followed on Twitch at twitch.tv/Cotsplays, where every Saturday morning at 12 p.m. he'll be making live music. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and rate this episode.